Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. This is episode 14 of Inside the Numbers. I'm Hunter Aschenbrenner. That's Jake Auerbach. Today, we have another very special guest. We're going to be talking a lot of sports with him coming up in the next couple of moments, and I think we're ready to get to that, right?
Yeah, it should be fun. All three guests that have joined so far have been super exciting to talk with, and this one should be no different. So excited for this one.
Yeah, let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by New York sports talk host Sal Licata. Sal, thank you for joining us. Before we get into the Mets and the Knicks, can you just tell us a bit about how you've gotten to the point where you are today? Now on SNY, you have your own sports talk show all over the internet, and then formerly a WFAN talk host.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I could do that quickly. I appreciate you guys having me. It's been a long career, probably longer than you guys were alive. How old are you guys?
We're
16.
both 16.
Yeah, so way longer than that. So I started as an intern at WFAN in 2003 and worked my way up. And then in 2010, I started with SNY, and I've been here working my way up ever since. So currently, you mentioned no longer at WFAN, but I am doing my own YouTube show, which I'm sure you guys are ahead of the curve. At 16, I was calling WFAN. I wish I had the opportunity to do my own show. So you guys are already ahead. And I host at SNY. I'm actually at SNY right now. I did my Baseball Night New York show, and then I'll be on later tonight. But dedication, hard work, and just persistent is, I guess, where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm. All right, and now you said with the Mets and at SNY, we'll dive right into them. What were your thoughts on AJ Ewing's electric debut last night?
I thought it was great. It's nice to have. I'm not going to say that the team is going to turn it around because I'm not so sure I believe that, but it's nice to have a reason to watch. And with the youthful excitement, the energy that AJ Ewing provided, at least in one game, and even just curiosity of seeing what he could do at the big league level, I think that's exciting in a year where it seems to have gone sideways for the Mets before it ever even got started, which is hard to believe. I love the fact that AJ Ewing came up and had an immediate impact. And even more than the immediate impact, the way that he looked to me, like he looked more like a big leaguer in one game than anything we've seen from Francisco Alvarez, Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, just to name a few, in multiple years. I was
Yeah,
very impressed with what we saw from game one from AJ Ewing.
Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's
for
good to
sure.
have an elite presence of that contact, speed, and defensive upside in the lineup. That move was made by Mets manager Carlos Mendoza. Came out a few weeks ago that they're planning on holding on to him for now. We'll see what happens down the stretch of the year. Do you think that's the right move, or do you think it's time for change?
I do think it's the right move. I think Carlos Mendoza proved his worth in 2024, his first year where they started out awful, and the fact that he was able to overcome that. He's a baseball lifer. He's experienced in New York. He's had success. He's handled adversity. I'm not so sure you're going to find somebody better. The idea that you're going to go out there and get one of these old school managers, that's not going to happen. If it's not Mendoza, it's going to be a guy that the front office thinks that they can control with the analytics and data. That's the majority of guys out there. So Mendoza to me is a well-respected baseball man. He's a knowledgeable guy. He toes the line of holding guys accountable, but also being player friendly. He keeps an even keel temperament. Now, if they made a change, you have to understand it because I would disagree with it, but I understand it because they've been so bad.
Yeah.
But I would not. I said this a couple of weeks ago. I would have come out and said that I will extend him so you could put to rest all the talk about possibly firing him. They didn't do that, but they did publicly support him because they know it's not a manager problem. This team has been hit hard by injury, and the guys who are healthy have not performed. To me, that's not the manager. Whether you love him like I do, whether you don't like him like some others do, we all should agree that this is not a manager problem.
Yeah, I feel like it's just usually when these teams underperform, they end up trying
Yep.
anything. We just saw with the Phillies, they fired Rob Thompson, and then it's working so far. But with the Mets underperforming, do you think it's more Stearns or just the players completely not playing up to par?
Hunter, I think it's a good example that you bring up with the Phillies, right? They're a different team. Their team has already been, deep into the postseason, and they've been kind of on the decline for the last couple of years. After getting to the World Series in 2022, then it's been kind of declining since then. But they have talent. They're just underperforming. And it felt like for me, okay, it was time to make a change. With the Mets, It's more about the lack of talent on the roster and the talent that is here not performing, like Bo Bichette. Is that Mendoza's fault that Bo Bichette can't buy a hit? He's getting paid $40 million. Soto was out the majority of the year. He comes back. Lindor's now been out. Polanco, that's on Stearns, bringing in Polanco, who hasn't even played. So I'm not saying Mendy's been great. I liked him best in 2024. I think he got a little bit away from himself last year, but still it wasn't his fault. It was the pitching. This year, again, with his job on the line, he's going to listen to the front office of some of these lineups I don't agree with. But I still think at the end of the day, Mendy is an asset to any organization. And I would look at the main problems with this team: roster construction and performance of the players would be the two main culprits to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. So you bring up the performance of the players, headlined by Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto. Going back to opening day and even last year, there were questions about the relationship the two have had. There's been questions about many relationships that Francisco Lindor has had since being with the Mets. Do you know anything inside their relationship? On opening day, going down the handshake line, they just gave each other a little high five while Soto and Lindor were having separate handshakes with other players. Do you think anything is really to read into that?
Let me put it this way, Jake. Even if they hated each other, and I'm not saying that they do. I mean, I think it's been reported that they weren't the best of friends. There have been some things that have happened, like they moved the lockers. Okay, whatever. Yeah. But even if they hated each other, that's not an excuse for them to play so poorly as a team. And by the way, as I just mentioned before, Soto was out for 15 games, whatever it was, for 2 weeks. And now Lindor's been out. And they still are a horrible baseball team. Yeah. So I think that last year, the adjustment from the great vibes of 2024 needed to be made when you bring in a guy like Juan Soto. Soto clearly didn't feel welcome. If you read some of the stuff that he's talked about, where he's talking about being a mentor to Luis Robert, for example, saying like he wanted to welcome him and make him feel comfortable. To me, if you're paying attention, that would mean that the guys last year didn't make him feel comfortable when he came here for whatever reason. Maybe they were jealous. Maybe they just didn't think he fit the vibes. I have no idea, but they're big boys. They need to figure it out. And the 1986 team, which is 40 years old, so you guys have no shot of remembering that. Those guys weren't choir boys. They weren't all best friends, but they still figured out a way to win. And that's just one example. We've seen plenty of times before with other teams where you don't need to be best buddies to go out there and have success. So even if Soto and Lindor aren't best friends, that to me is not an excuse for why this team has been bad.
Yeah, I mean, it gets overblown when there's winning doesn't come with it, and it's been said like over the past couple of years that Soto's kind of a loner and doesn't like go into that whole clubhouse like friendships and stuff. Obviously this weekend, the Yankees are coming into town or coming into Citi Field. I'm a Yankee fan. He's a Mets fan. What is your favorite moment as a fan of the Subway Series over the years? Obviously as a Mets fan.
Yeah. Two come to mind. I'd be curious to see if you guys even know of these. One was 1997, which I'm sure seems ancient to you. The first one ever. That's when it got started. Mets and Yankees, Subway Series official first game in Yankee Stadium, I want to say June 16th, if memory serves correct, in 1997. Dave Malicki, pitcher for the Mets, threw a complete game shutout, and the Mets beat the Yankees. And it was my first ever game at Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium. That's a memory I'll never forget. It was just euphoric. Now, it's been all downhill since then, but that one comes to mind. And then the first time that the Mets actually beat the Yankees in a series was 1999. I think that was the first year where they played. Oh, no, maybe I was going to say it was the first year they played at both stadiums. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that was the first year Matt Franco had a game-winning walk-off base hit against Mariano Rivera in what was a tremendous back-and-forth regular season baseball game. So those would be the two that stick out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do either of you remember any of those, or have you heard of any of them? Oh, man.
I've heard of the complete game shutout, but
I haven't.
Obviously
way before
my time.
Yeah.
And then as we shift to the Knicks, they dominated the 76ers, a 4-game sweep. It was amazing to watch. As we have Game 5 of the Pistons and the Cavs tonight, who would you rather coming into the Garden next week for the Eastern Conference Finals?
I think I want the Pistons. I don't really care either way. I welcome either team. I think the Cavs would be easier, but I want to see the Knicks get tested against Detroit and then check that box before they go into the NBA Finals and take on likely either the Spurs or the Thunder, because the Pistons had their number in the regular season. Knicks haven't really been tested, obviously, in the playoffs so far. They're playing at an extremely high level. I want to see how that's going to look against a better team. You could say, well, the Hawks aren't any good. You could say, well, the Sixers aren't even as good as the Celtics, and maybe the Celtics, Sixers got fortunate because no Jason Tatum. I think the Pistons would be the tougher challenge. Plus, I bought tickets to home game 3. So I'm thinking that if it's against the Pistons, that could be game 6 at home, possible clincher. Knicks in 6 over the Pistons. So selfish reasons. And because I want to see the Knicks get tested, I would go with the Pistons. Although if you make a case for the Cavs, home game 3 would be game 5. Maybe the Knicks could put the Cavs away in 5. So either way, I'm excited about it. And I think that at this point, I'd be terribly disappointed if the Knicks don't find themselves in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I think the Knicks would have the advantage over either team. The Pistons' physicality would be interesting to try and defend, but their offense over a long series I don't really trust it. I just don't really want to see a sort of Thompson. And then with the Cavs, obviously their backcourt with Mitchell and Harden is dominant, but Brunson's been able to put away Mitchell in the past, and I expect no other this year if they face off. Do you think the rest that the Knicks are going to have, which is going to be at least a week, do you think that's going to impact them, or do you think they'll be able to just kick off on Sunday night or Tuesday night right where they've left off?
I think there might be a little initial rust, maybe not as hot a start. I mean, the Knicks have started just on fire in these playoff games here. Maybe there's a little bit of a lag or some rust early on, or maybe even in the first game. I'm not sure. I think that's a good question. The one thing that I would say is I would rather have that and have them get fully healthy and rested, in particular with OG Anunoby. And it sounds like Anunoby is going to be ready for game 1. That, to me, is more valuable. I know they're hot and you want to keep it going, but they play so hard. I think they'll benefit from the rest. Josh Hart's always banged up. Mitchell Robinson, making sure Brunson is fresh. And obviously, as I mentioned, getting OG Anunoby back. So I think that they'll benefit. Ultimately, they'll benefit, even if it is a little bit of a lull, let's say, in game 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely think it is something. Not playing especially for the playoffs, you're not playing intense for close to a week. You're not getting that true game speed action. But I think overall it is a positive getting these guys like OG especially, getting him fully healthy, and even Cat and Josh Hart got a little banged up in game 4. They played the rest of the game, but I mean, get them rested up for the rest of the playoffs.
Would you rather them have played a grueling 6 or 7 game series? I wouldn't.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree with that. All right, big long-term question here for the rest of this playoffs. Do you think the Knicks truly have what it takes to win it all?
I do. I mean, the scary thing for me, Jake, is that, now, obviously I'm a lot older than you guys, so I lived through the 90s and watching those Knicks teams both times. They were in the finals in my lifetime in 93 and 94, and then the 99 season. 93, 94, I was hoping, but they were, even if they were better than the Rockets, it was marginally better. I think that those were equal teams. And the only reason why the Knicks got to the finals was because Jordan was finally out of the way. In 99, they went on a tremendous run in the postseason, but I never felt like they had a chance to beat the Spurs, especially without Patrick Ewing. This is different. This is by far the most talented Knicks team that I've ever seen. They're playing at an extremely high level. They're coming together, playing with chemistry. They're playing hard, playing unselfish basketball. They're extremely talented and deep. If this doesn't equate to a championship, I don't know what will. And if not for the Thunder, who are an excellent team, not just having one superstar. Obviously, they won the championship a year ago, SGA leading the way. They're a very deep and well-balanced team and running roughshod through the Western Conference right now. If not for them, I think the Knicks would be the odds-on favorite. Everybody would be saying this is a championship team. This is what championship basketball looks like. I've never seen better basketball than this as a Knicks fan. So I do believe that they are legitimate contenders, and maybe because they're hungrier than the Thunder, being that the Thunder already have their championship and the Knicks have to prove themselves, maybe that could be a difference in a series, what I would expect to be a tight battle, assuming that it is the Knicks and the OKC Thunder.
Yeah, the Thunder would be tough, but the Knicks team, something clicked behind closed doors after game 3, and they've completely come together since then. And it's just been fun, dominant basketball in every game they've played since. As I want to touch on football a bit, how did you become an Atlanta Falcons fan as you grew up?
So when I was your guys' age, maybe a little bit younger, I like Deion Sanders because you've heard of him, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because he was. I mean, there was exciting dual sport athletes, whether it was Bo Jackson or Deion back in the day. But I just fell in love with Deion Sanders. Prime time. I like the uniforms, and I just took a liking to Deion. And then my grandfather was actually a Braves fan for a little while because they were free and they were good. And Deion played for both the Falcons and the Braves, so it was just a natural tie-in to like Deion. I didn't. I grew up like a Giant fan when they had Parcells, but I really never loved them. My father was not a sports fan, so I didn't have any way to go either with my father or against my father. So I was just kind of a free agent, fair weather Giants fan. I saw them win the Super Bowl in 1990, so I like that. But once I got to junior high, I got the Falcons jersey, the Dion jersey. Then I had the Falcons starter jacket. Looked those up; they were fire back in the day, and it kind of just was my identity. And I stuck with that for the most part until they blew that Super Bowl lead. Then I was kind of all right. Maybe it's time to just move on because I was doing a lot of sports talk on the Fan, which is mostly Jets and Giants. Nobody gives a shit about the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, what's it like growing up as a Falcons fan? Because obviously in New York, I mean, my brother is actually a Falcons fan, and he's probably the only Falcons fan I've met up until I've met you just now. What was it like growing up? Obviously, everyone pretty much is a Jets or Giants fan. So was it weird or?
No, because I think that with the NFL, even now, like, what are you guys? Are you Giants and Jets fans?
I'm a
I'm
Jets
Giants,
fan.
he's Jets.
Okay, Giants and Jets. So that actually, to me, is a little more rare than you would think. A lot of people now, even young kids, grow up rooting for their favorite fantasy player, a guy who helped them win a championship, or just look at the Chiefs and they're good, or Josh Allen. I love Josh Allen, so I'm a Bills fan. So I think, and football has been like that for a while, where a lot of people grew up Cowboys fans or Steelers fans because of their dynasties in the 70s. So Niners fans, prominent in the 80s. So there was a lot of different fans growing up, although I would say Packers fans as well. Although I would say that it seems more frequent now that kids would grow up rooting for out of town teams. For me, it wasn't a big deal because I don't remember. I mean, like the Giants, when I was in my peak fandom with the Falcons, neither the Jets or Giants were any good. 98 was the one year that the Jets were good and the Falcons ended up going to the Super Bowl. Jets lost in the AFC Championship. But it wasn't I don't think it was this weird thing. I would wear different jerseys all the time. So with some kids in school, it wasn't like, wow, I stood out. It was my identity, which Falcons were rare, but being a fan of an out of town team wasn't as rare as you would think.
hmm Yeah,
If
and
that makes
then
sense.
oh yeah, we have a couple friends that are Cowboys
Yeah.
and teams like that. Obviously with the Jets and the Giants, both had very active off seasons. The Giants surrounding their quarterback. They brought in John Harbaugh, and then the Jets they built up the roster all around. What were your thoughts on both their off seasons and the outlook as we move into the off season or move throughout the off season and the season?
I mean, I think getting John Harbaugh legitimizes the Giants. So I'm excited to watch them. Both these teams have stunk for far too long.
Yeah.
I just want some relevant football in New
Mhm.
York. I mean, not only have they been bad, their seasons are over 2 and 3 weeks in. What happened with Rodgers was an absolute disaster. I was excited for the Jets. We never got to see a good run there. But with the Giants, I'm actually excited for Jackson Dart year 2 and a real head coach in Harbaugh. That should be a difference maker. And they have some talent. How many wins is going to translate to this year? I don't know, but I would hope that at the very least they're going to be competitive and fun to watch week in, week out. The Jets, the only thing I hated about the Jets offseason is Geno Smith. I hate the acquisition of Geno Smith. I like the quarterback that they drafted, Klubnik. I like some of the other moves that Muji has made, but really it's not about this year. It's about next year and beyond. I know some people are saying the Jets are going to have a good season. I don't see it. I could be wrong. I don't think the Jets are going to be very good. I think it was so bad last year. I don't know how you go from that to being competitive this year, especially with a quarterback that I don't trust. But overall, at least the Jets they have a direction, and Muji's trying to get him there. It may take a while. And the Giants are now going to be a respectable team, if not just the simple fact that, yes, they have talent, and especially Jackson Dart, but just John Harbaugh knows what he's doing and how to coach a team to be competitive to win some football games.
Yeah, with the Jets, Geno obviously not the best choice, but there wasn't much they had really to choose from. One last point on the Jets. I know you weren't the biggest fan of Robert Saleh. What are your thoughts on Aaron Glenn as he hopes to save his job in year 2?
I was more discouraged than anything else from Aaron Glenn in year 1, and I would be surprised if he survives this year. I like his mentality. I think at times he was a little too arrogant, and then I think at times he wasn't being his true self, because of how often the Jets were losing. But he's going to be under a lot of pressure, because I would assume that if they don't win at all, and I can't expect them to win with that roster this year, I just get the feeling Woody's going to get antsy and maybe want to make a change. I don't know that. I'm just speculating here, but I'm rooting for Aaron Glenn because I think it would be a great story if he could succeed here. I just don't think he's been set up to succeed. So Saleh was a bad head coach, but they fired him at the wrong time. They should have never let him be the head coach to start that year. I would have gone in a different direction. I wish the Jets would just hire an experienced head coach like Harbaugh. Mm-hmm. They either haven't or can't. That's the problem. When there's opportunities to, Woody doesn't want to do it. And then the certain guys that he would want to hire, they don't want the Jets. So I don't believe ultimately Aaron Glenn's going to be the guy to lead the Jets to the promised land.
All right, so, thank you.
I got one quick question if you have time for 2 minutes.
Good.
Schedule drops in just a couple minutes at this point, but one game for the Giants has been released already. Week 1, Sunday Night Football at MetLife Stadium, Giants, Cowboys. I'm stoked for the game, honestly. If I could choose any Week 1 matchup, I would choose that game.
Wow.
I've seen a lot of people say, I want the Cardinals. I want to get off on a good foot. Understand where they're coming from, but I want to set presence. I want to set the standard for the New York Giants under John Harbaugh on prime time, national television against our rivals at home. What are your thoughts on that game?
I like it. I like that you have that attitude, Jake, because now you're just taking it head on. Let's see what we're made of right out of the gate. Problem is, with a team that's been so bad for so long, what if they lose that game? And now you're like, oh, man, we were excited about Harbaugh and excited about Dart and having Neighbors back and the defensive moves that we've made. Then you lose to the Cowboys, and now it's like, uh-oh, here we go again. So it's way too early to look at the calendar once the schedule actually officially does come out. Yeah. But I think the Giants, I think it's important for them to get off to a good start because of similar to what we saw with the Mets this year. They had great expectations, and I felt like, okay, they could reach those expectations. They got to get off to a good start. The fan base won't let them have time to breathe. And I worry that that might be the case with the Giants, although Giant fans are smart, and they will be patient knowing that Harbaugh and Dart should be a good combo. I don't know what the Cowboys are going to be this year, but I would think that Dallas is going to be as dangerous as Philadelphia in that division. So you'll know right out of the gate where the Giants stand early on, which I kind of like that Sunday Night Football challenge week 1.
Yep. All right, that's all we got for you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
All right, boys. Good luck with the show. What is this, YouTube podcast? What do we got?
Yep,
okay.
YouTube.
Full episodes on YouTube, and we have Instagram, TikTok, where we post clips of it. So full episodes.
Good luck with everything.
YouTube,
Stick with it.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
guys.
You.